Scott Bischoff is joining us. Hey, Scott, welcome to The Hook.
What's up, guys? How are you?
There he is.
We're great. Great to have you on. Thanks for taking the time.
Hey, Scotty.
Anytime. It's good to be on.
All right, give us your grade. Go ahead. Lions draft class 2021.
A grade, really?
Yeah.
Like A.
Seriously?
We're dumbing it down.
Or opinion overall, how
We'll get
you
your
do
opinion.
it. Where
We
would you
hear all
say
your blah,
coming
blah,
in,
blah.
coming
Just
out?
give us a grade.
Maz, he doesn't do grades.
He's doing a grade
Isn't
on
the
this
grade
show.
thing silly? I mean, I think the Lions had a great draft. But, I mean, does it really matter whether somebody thinks it's an A or a B or a B plus or whatever? No.
To Maz, it does. He
You
lives
tell
in
that
the
to
future
Pete
and the
Prisco,
past.
Vinny
Yeah.
Eiler, Mel Kiper.
So, Scott, would you walk away from this draft high-fiving upper management? Saying, you guys, awesome.
Probably
High
doing
five.
more. I might more than high five upper management.
More like what?
Maybe that's
Like-
inappropriate to say that, but
I want to
No, I
know.
think
What would you do?
You could bro hug him.
I would hug them, gently. No, I think they did a great job. It's just, I mean, the whole grading thing comes down to whether or not you value the players they took. You know what I'm saying? Like, so, I mean, the Lions did a great job of resetting a specific position within their team. The defensive line is now one of the strengths of their team. They also drafted one of the best players in the entire class in Penei Sewell. I think that's phenomenal. It's great. There might be a little picking at it that they didn't draft a wide receiver as early as maybe some wanted, but you took Penei Sewell, you took Onwuzurike, you took Lee McNeil, you've reset the defensive line, which is a really important part of the defense. I think what they did was super smart. It's a little bit, not a lot of people saw it coming, just because the defensive line class was a little thin this year, but they got two of the better defensive line players in the entire class. I love what they did. I think it was super smart.
Oh, yeah? I want to see you tell us the cornerback from Syracuse's name.
Ifeatu Melifonwu?
Wow.
That guy?
Wow.
God,
You'll
he
be
make
getting-
it sound
deal.
easy.
Big
I just
shot.
want to know.
Wow.
In
I
press
totally made
conference,
that up.
It sounded so true.
in press conferences, they're already just calling him Ippy.
There you go.
They're just cutting it down
It's
to
just
Ippy.
easier.
It
Yeah.
is.
Hey, tell us
Yeah,
about
he's an interesting player.
Tell us about our receiver, St. Brown. Speaking of receivers.
Okay, so we all get hung up on the whole 40-yard dash time and all that stuff, but when you watch him play, he does not look like a player who struggles to separate from coverage. He doesn't look like a guy who has issues running routes. I don't think he's it's not like he's crazy fast or any of that stuff, but you're looking at a high-volume receiver who will likely play out of the slot and be a productive receiver for the Lions for a while. Again, with their issues in the room, there's a need for somebody to step up. And while it's unlikely that he's going to have a huge rookie season, he's gonna be a big part of their offense, and he'll be a reliable player for Jared Goff. Jared Goff will trust him to get open.
What's Scott Bischoff joining us here, guru extraordinaire from Woodward Sports. But what's next in the interim for the Lions as far as these guys? And was there anybody that surprised you or you're excited about? I know Maz has brought up Derek Barnes, and it's not just because it's the easiest one to pronounce, but obviously being the highest draft pick out of Purdue since Cliff Averill, and being sort of more touted. Can you talk a little bit about him, or maybe some guys that we don't know about that you're maybe looking to for a little bit of excitement?
Yeah, they went up 40 spots to get him.
It's interesting with him. I mean, I know they were connected to Micah Parsons in round one. And you could draw, from a play style perspective, you could draw a line between Micah Parsons and Derek Barnes. They play a similar style. Now, Parsons is bigger, and he's more athletic, and he's more explosive, but it's still the attacking, coming forward, playing out of the middle of the defense, and making plays as an inside linebacker, and then affecting the passing game as a pass rusher and a blitzer. He's super physical. He's fun to watch. I don't know that he's a player who needs to see the field right away. He will on special teams, but this is a developmental player who is going to bring some intriguing skill to the team. Obviously the Lions really liked him to make the move they made to come up that far, and it tells you. I think the Lions liked Micah Parsons, the player, and the skill set, maybe not so much the off the field stuff that came with him. So
Well,
Barnes is a very valuable player to get him in round 4 where they did.
Oh, absolutely. Let me ask you this question. Is there a player that they drafted that you don't like? You know, like that maybe we should start there with you look at somebody and you don't see how they fit, you know, why they chose him or why not. Like, why would they go? One of the questions that I would ask is because we are sort of set on running back, but they draft Jermar Jefferson out of Oklahoma, running back late. I'm looking for pieces here because I like this draft and what they did because they established insight in the mosh pit and what they're going to be about competition. You know, so
I'm with you. I don't. The only thing I would tell you about Jermar Jefferson is I think he's a natural replacement for Kerryon Johnson if they choose to want to move on from Kerryon Johnson this year. You might be able to flip Kerryon Johnson as training camp nears or during camp for a late round pick in say 2022. You have Jamal Williams, you have DeAndre Swift. Jermar Jefferson's a very talented player. I think just the truth with him is you're in round 7, I think it was the 3rd to the last pick in the draft.
Yeah.
And my assumption is that they had a significantly higher grade on him and were very surprised that he was available. So, you know, with him, I think he fits as part of a committee. He's a viable player. He's a good player. It's just, you know, all those guys have to develop in pass protection. That's where Kerryon's really good right now. But, you know, to address the question, I liked every pick they made. I thought made sense. I think when you put Onwuzurike and Aleem McNeil together, you have a natural nose and a natural 3-tech type. Both of them can reset the line of scrimmage. Onwuzurike is maybe more, he's much more penetrator, a little further away from the ball. So putting those guys on the field together, it gives them the ability to attack more. And that's what I think one of the frustrations for Lions fans the last couple of years is that they've been a very passive defense. They haven't blitzed much. There hasn't been a lot of pass rush pressure. There just hasn't been much to see from that part of the game. And these guys changed that. These guys they're not only are they big guys who offer that, but they're athletic players too. And that matters. You know, so McNeil at 320 pounds, he's a very athletic guy. He's gonna squeeze centers back. He's gonna condense the pocket, and it's gonna make it tough for quarterbacks to step up into the pocket to make throws. And with Onwuzurike coming off the 3-tech there, it shortens the angles for edge players to have to get to the quarterback. So it's kind of a facilitating type thing. They're all going to make it easier for everybody around them. Those are smart picks.
Hey, to go up 40 spots, and I go back to Derek Barnes for a minute, is that Chris Spielman running over to Brad Holmes and saying, you got to get this guy. This guy, one linebacker to another, maybe he sees himself in that linebacker. Do you think that's a Chris Spielman pick?
I would be floored if Brad Holmes gave a lot of credibility to, and this is going to sound dismissive, and I don't mean it to, but Chris Spielman's job he has a specific job, and Brad Holmes has his own job, and I don't think Brad Holmes has really given a lot of thought to a specific player that Chris Spielman may or may not like. I mean, just because they play the same position, it's, you know what I mean? It's like, it's a different game now. So I don't know. I don't think so.
Here's how I would have seen it because of how it would sort of work out, where I'll speak about it personally, right? Where in the organization, if there's a guy before this, they would have gone through this in their preparation. Spielman would have said, he would have picked on him and said Barnes would have been on there. That would have keyed Holmes in the draft to say, that's the conversation. But that conversation happened a month ago or 2 months ago when they're making their boards and stuff like this to say, because, you know, I'll be honest, you know, Giovanni Smith is a guy I've been watching since he played junior and stuff, who's part of the wings because he plays a style, you know, today's more or less me. So I can say, hey, what do you like about him or what don't you like about him? Because I can compare it. That's to your point. That's where the input would go in, but it would go into Brad Holmes' thought process, but it's like an ingredient. It's like the mustard in the sandwich, right? That's gone on before.
Yeah, just a part of the process.
Part of the process. To show, which goes to show you the process that they've instilled in place, so to speak, works. So to Maz's point, Yes, but not like run up to it at the point.
No, I get it.
This
They
has
had
been
to make
talked
the trade.
No,
They're not
I
going to run up at the last minute.
Maz, I understand. I'm trying to make you understand that, yes, it was an influence, not of like you think about at the last minute, but something that is converse, because that is part of the culture. That's culture you establish, and that's what I would say to that point.
Scott, watching how the draft unfolded for the Lions, it was pretty apparent that they had a game plan and they were going to stick to their needs. They weren't going to start doing emotional picks or get sidetracked by what was shiny and what the fans would have loved, or other analysts would have wanted to see. But was there anybody that was still available before we took any of our picks that you said, man, the Lions messed up, we should have snagged this player?
No, not so much that they messed up. And some of this stuff is injury-related type things. But there's, as an example, there was a player who fell into late round 6 from Tennessee. His name is Trey Smith. And he has medical stuff that, it's possible that some teams just didn't have him on their draft board. It's possible. But I viewed him as a player who could come in right now and play without really needing all that much time as a guard. And it was one of those things where it's like, you're in round 5, and I know they didn't have a pick, but hey, move, find a way to get up there and grab this guy, because this is a player who can play for a little while. I think he ended up getting drafted by the Chiefs, but
yeah, the Chiefs
he's got blood clotting issues, and there's stuff there with him. But part of this is understanding that Brad Holmes comes in with a specific mindset about how he wants to develop a team. Like Darren, here's an example. So when Yzerman took over for the Red Wings, his first draft, I know he said, he stood up in the draft room and he said, with the 6th pick in the draft, the Red Wings select defenseman Moritz Seider, right? I know he said those words, but what I really heard was him say, Kenny Holland, I reject your notion of what you have as defenseman in our pipeline. I just reject it entirely. So we're going in a different direction, and that's kind of what I thought Holmes did with the way he approached both the first-round pick, but more specifically the 2nd and 3rd round picks. Just entirely changing direction on the style of play at defensive line and wanting to be more attacking and more aggressive with the way they play. That's just kind of how it came out to me, what it seemed like. I don't know if that makes sense. But.
I see that absolutely. You're making your mark of what you're gonna, establish, and you're right, because Moritz Seider will be Steve Yzerman's pivot point, like Vasilevsky, the goaltender in Tampa Bay to win the cup, sort of was a moving point. So hopefully, and I see you're right, because now you got guys that want to move guys 2-3 yards deep, want to attack the quarterback, are rushers north-south. So I think that was a great analogy.
Real quick, Scott, we spoke yesterday on the guys that we actually drafted. But before we started the stream, we were actually talking about the undrafted guys, and you said there's a lot of boom or bust potential. What are the key names, I guess, that we should keep eye out throughout camp, and who do you expect to make the team out of this group?
So this is interesting. They signed 3 wide receivers, and they're all very different from anything they have on the roster. They're all big. I don't want to say think Kenny Golladay, but they're like Kenny Golladay, where bigger guys who are good with the ball in the air, who dominate with the ball in the air in the contested catch game. Guys who are almost like basketball players, where they use their body to box out defenders, but not great. They don't bring great athleticism or any of that kind of stuff. But just guys who can just back shoulder fades, red zone type options. Jonathan Adams Jr. from Arkansas is one of those guys. Sage Surratt from Wake Forest is another one. They're big, huge guys. These are all 3 of the guys they signed are all 6'2" and 210 plus pounds. Jonathan Adams is Arkansas State. He's 6'2", 210. He's around a 4'6" guy. Javon McKinley from Notre Dame, same thing, and Sage Surratt. So all 3 of these receivers are a specific type of receiver, something they do not have on the roster. And it wouldn't surprise me to see one of them make the team and be somewhat productive early. Those guys are interesting. They're interesting players. Jerry Jacobs is a cornerback from Arkansas. I could see him maybe moving to safety. He's a very physical player. He wants to bring it, and he's 5'10" and 210 pounds, so he'd be a little shorter, but he's a thick player who's a very heavy hitter. They have some intriguing options. There is a guard from Notre Dame, Tommy Kramer, who's he's big and physical. Needs to work on some footwork stuff, but there are going to be options there for them.
What does a draft guy like you do now, Scott? Do you got to get ready for the next draft? You're a scout. What's your schedule looking like these days after this is all said and done?
So there'll be a little downtime, and then it's going to be looking at underclassmen from last year and trying to get a feel for which of those guys we think are going to enter the draft. And there'll be a lot of them. And
Always looking
listen.
ahead.
Yeah, we're looking ahead. There's a lot of wide receivers in next year's class. So if anybody wants to get upset about them not addressing the receiver position, they have 2 first-round picks next year, and there are some studs in the draft next year. So
right.
you can do that then.
Sounds good to me, man. Hey, thanks for everything you've done for all the network. We appreciate you.
Anytime. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
See you, bud.
Scott
Thanks, Scott.
Bischoff.